Hey everybody, Scott Costa, the publisher of TED Magazine. Thanks for joining us. Another Distributed with TED Magazine podcast. I had a great conversation with Steve Holdsworth, who's the Vice President of Strategic Initiatives for Crescent Electric Supply. They were nice enough to share some of their best practices when it comes to VMI, when it comes to helping their customers' needs with products that they have to make sure are on the shelves at the right time, and with an opportunity at the bottom line is to save a little bit of money. So I think you're going to enjoy what Steve had to say and some of the best practices that Crescent is doing with its StockNOW program. Also, another thing that's going to help you out during this economic time is the NEAD Market Data Program. We definitely need to be talking about that. The Market Data Program is a service where electrical distributors submit confidential, anonymous, monthly point of sales data. Users are then able to see market values by region, product, or customer type. Users are only able to see the aggregated market data when there is enough data flowing into the system to maintain anonymity. The Market Data Program recently began displaying the first state data for Illinois, North Carolina, and Virginia. More data is expected soon as more distributors begin submitting their data. If you want more information about the NEAD Market Data Program, go to nead.org/marketdata to get the information that you need. And now enjoy the podcast with Steve Holdsworth of Crescent Electric Supply. All right, Steve Holdsworth, who's the Vice President of Strategic Initiatives with Crescent Electric Supply, is joining me to talk about something that Crescent has brought to my attention, a program called StockNOW, which is what they're working on to help their customers, especially during the time of coronavirus. Steve, thanks for joining me on the Distributed with TED Magazine podcast.
Yeah, happy to be here, Scott.
Well, I appreciate it, you taking the time and for informing us about this program and what you're doing. So tell me a little bit about StockNOW. How did you decide, hey, you know what, we're gonna launch this new program that makes sure our customer needs are met when it comes to what we have on our shelves?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So StockNOW, it's really nothing new to our industry. Candidly speaking, it's a vendor managed inventory program, trademarked as StockNOW. We have some custom technology embedded within there, but be that as it may, it's a true VMI program. And as it relates to the current pandemic that we're dealing with right now, there's certain elements of the program that work nicely in the current climate that we're having to deal with right now.
Mm-hmm. And so you've rolled this out to customers. What kind of reaction have you gotten to this point?
No, there has been I don't want to say widely accepted. That's not the right word, but it has been accepted quite well for a number of different reasons. So let's face it, none of us, I believe, have ever gone through this type of economic climate, and hopefully in the future none of us will again. So we're dealing in uncharted waters, to use a cliche. But one thing for certain is the situation isn't going to likely end in the next 30, 60, 90, 120 days. So it is what it is. And what is most everybody concerned with? And it's health and safety of their employees and of the customers. So, when we took a look at how we can become, that trusted advisor, part of our customers' essential business, and do that in a respectful manner that practices social distance and all of the other attributes of being a good partner, we said, all right, well, what does StockNOW or a VMI service bring to the customer? So, first and foremost, reduce purchase orders, right? Rather than cutting, 10 different purchase orders and deploying, your team, whether it's an electrician going to somebody's counter or a delivery from 10 different distributors to that manufacturer's facility, it's one PO in many cases. So it's streamlining the PO process. You take the concept that's being used by, a lot of the restaurants now, like curbside pickup, right? Take that same concept and deploy it with some type of vendor managed inventory program where deliveries are made in a conscious effort to practice social distancing. Or maybe it's a program where, you're doing the actual inventory management and there isn't the customer involved. It's all done electronically by your own folks.
Right.
You can take it, one step further if you're dealing with, a customer that may have, call it cleanliness requirements. Maybe it's a food and beverage company or a pharmaceutical
Right.
company where sterilization, to add that extra level of security into the delivery, takes place prior to that material being put away on their shelf. So those are some of the attributes of a VMI program that Crescent and others can deploy in this type of situation.
And so how are your customers, I'm assuming, kind of got into hey, you know what, we're going to have to we're not allowed inside especially at the beginning of the pandemic, we're not allowed inside the locations. So how are they taking to the sort of the curbside delivery, and how does StockNOW kind of help them make sure that they're reducing the number of visits, or at least making it a less painful experience of just trying to get the materials that they need as they're an essential business to continue to move forward?
Yeah, great question, Scott. And unfortunately, it's not a one size fits all. So,
right.
It hate to use the word, it all depends, but we have some customers where we established, a set delivery time and schedule with the same person. Protocols are in place as far as temperature, prior to delivery, any symptoms that could be indicative of the virus are taken into account. Others are, where the material is staged and set up for the customer to come by and pick up. So the difference is a vendor managed inventory program where, us or another distributor is managing it, or the customer is managing it based upon the material that distributor is making available to them, and really everything in between.
So this program kind of puts you in a better situation when it comes to just stock on hand, I'm assuming. I mean, and one of the things that you pointed out when we were talking before we started the podcast was, nobody wants to have 2 years worth of product sitting on the shelf waiting for it to get sold. But by the same token, I think equally difficult is nobody wants nothing on the shelf. So when a customer comes and wants something, you don't have it, or you need components or parts, and you're taking parts from one product that's already on the shelf and you're taking it out of the box, and then you've got pieces all over the place. So how is this helping you guys to make sure that, the inventory needs are continuing to be met?
Sure. So, early on, let's call it, the February, March timeframe, where, the whole COVID-19 pandemic was really starting to hit the U.S., right? We had already felt supply chain impact coming from China, and then, later on, south of the border down in Mexico. But the one constant, everybody started squeezing inventories, manufacturers, distributors, end users, contractor, everybody. It was a cash conservation. So again, when you take a look at truly the role of a distributor, we are buying and reselling products, and we're wrapping value-added service and delivery logistics around it. So working with these types of VMI programs allows us to help that end user shrink what they need to have on hand, us to have more direct dialogue with that manufacturer, because in many cases, some of the minimum order quantities that we would have in our system were reduced to help conserve cash, which was pretty much common across the entire electrical wholesale supply chain. But having that dialogue allowed a lot of these plants, again, whether it's a fuse manufacturer, fitting manufacturer, wire manufacturer, to level load their capacity with a reduced workforce so that they could come up with a more robust just-in-time delivery for us. So it was a complete modification of the supply chain based upon the reduced on-hand quantities required.
I don't want to bury the bottom line, but we probably got to talk about the bottom line, which is dollars. This is saving at a time when, there's cash flow issues and we're worried about money. This is actually helping you with money. Explain how this, again, how StockNOW has kind of helped you guys sort of keep a better eye on the bottom line and save you a little bit of money at the same time.
Well, again, it's people are doing more with less, right? You have flex workforces. Again, inventory management is critical. So I don't want to say better management of inventory, but it's a different means to manage to the end at this point in time, given the current circumstances. So inventory turns, inventory consolidation, less product on hand, more inventory turns. less touch. So less POs coming in and going out, the streamlining of the order fulfillment cycle with a particular customer. A number of those different pieces will help manage to the bottom line, not mutually exclusive, but collectively all help move the needle.
Yeah. Are you saving money on express delivery, overnight delivery?
And anecdotally, yes. Just again, because when we or anybody else generally sets up, some type of vendor managed inventory program, there's a lot of analytics that go into the front side. What is your average spend? Again, whether it's a contractor, an industrial, or an OEM. What are the outliers? Do we need to carry any type of safety inventory for the B and C type items or the C and D type items? What does your build cycle look like? So, based upon seasonality, I'm not putting a lot of the rough in January and February, but I know, come June, July, I better have more than the recommended on-hand quantity. So a long way of answering your question, yes.
That's great. And Steve, if anybody, people are probably going to have other questions. If anybody wants to contact you, is there an email? Is there some way that folks can, hey, I have one more question, whatever.
Sure.
Is there a way how can folks email you or get in touch with you?
So my email is steve.holdsworth, and it's HOLDSWORTH at cesco.com.
Great. Steve, I appreciate it. Again, you're the Vice President of Strategic Initiatives for Crescent Electric Supply. I appreciate you explaining to me. Anything anybody can do these days to help everybody out with some best practices is greatly appreciated. So I appreciate you coming on the Distributed with Ted Magazine podcast.
Scott, again, thank you for the invite. And again, crazy times we're all dealing with. The one constant is we're in it together, and we'll get through this together.
Right. Well, thanks for coming. I appreciate it. All right. I hope you enjoyed that conversation I had with Steve Holdsworth. It was great of Crescent Electric to come on the podcast to share some best practices to help you out. Another thing that's going to help you out these days is the NAD Market Data Program. The program is a service where electrical distributors submit confidential, anonymous, monthly point of sales data. Users are then able to see market values by region, product, and customer type. Users are only able to see the aggregated market data when there's enough data flowing into the system to maintain anonymity. The market data program reached a milestone and recently began displaying its first data for Illinois, North Carolina, and Virginia, and more data is expected soon as more distributors begin submitting more data. If you want more information about the market data program, you head over to naed.org/market data to get information that you needed. And if you have questions about this podcast, if you have questions about other things that TED Magazine is doing, you can always get in touch with me. Easiest way to do it is probably email these days. You can email me scosta, SCOSTA @naed.org. You can call me. I'm in my office. Look, phone. Give me a shout. Area code 314-812-5311. Love to talk to you about this or anything else that's going on. In the meantime, thanks everybody for listening and watching the Distributed with Ted Magazine podcast.